Hello everyone, my name is Anthem of Sirens, and welcome to a brand new original idea that has never ever been done before on this oh so lovely platform we call YouTube.com. We're going to be talking about anime. More specifically, Devil May Cry, the animated series, the anime from 2007 made by Studio Madhouse. This show is based on the popular video game series Devil May Cry. This anime takes place in the game's universe, and it follows the adventures of Dante, taking jobs that involve killing demons. He also watches over a girl named Patty who hangs around him for comedic relief and to appeal the moe/lolly crowd. I mentioned before in a previous video that I'm a pretty casual fan of Devil May Cry. In fact, this anime, along with word of mouth from a good high school pal and Dante's cameo in Marvel vs. Capcom 3, is what introduced me to this franchise, and after watching the show, I then played the games, and I became a fan. This show has been something I wanted to cover for a long while now, way back when I was first a PNG tuber who thought being cynical was a cool personality trait. Why'd I think that back then? Cause I was very inspired by a British guy who wears a fedora. That's why. What can I say, we all copied somebody at one point in our lives. If you have not paid attention to anything I've said earlier in this video, well, first of all, wake up, buttface! Second of all, this show is based on the video games, which are very fast-paced action games. This anime also ties into the game's universe, as well as serving as a series of stories with connecting elements. Devil May Cry the Animated Beerus is a Monster of the Week show that takes place between Devil May Cry 1 and 2, where in every episode Dante fights a new monster of sorts, which I think is pretty well fit for a Devil May Cry show. In every episode, Dante is given a new job, and said job often involves the work of a demon that relates to the theme of the episode. Also, sometimes a job doesn't always go well, as the results are often disastrous, or Dante messes it up somehow. Kinda like how I keep messing up a lot of my recordings and make a ton of bloopers. These adventures are not completely meaningless and random, and they all connect to each other. In some episodes of the show, we see a demon named Sid, voiced by the late and great Chris Ayres, God rest his soul, observe and sometimes interfere with many of the characters for a greater scheme. We even have an episode that explores Dante's past, which is actually canon to the game's universe. Now let's talk characters, starting with the pizza man himself, Dante. Dante is handled pretty interestingly in this show. Unlike the games in which he's a lot more hyperactive and a little loud from time to time, he is a lot more calmer in this show. Not to say he is completely serious and mopey like he was in Devil May Cry 2, the gun-spamming adventures. He does throw in some quips when he is fighting demons and is often really sarcastic to the other characters around him. Not in a Marvel ironic, wow, that just happened kind of way. Dante does his quips and jokes very sincerely and then moves on. He doesn't go on tangents, he just says something and then moves forward. However, this show does imply that Dante is depressed throughout the series, and you know, I can see that. More on that later. But in the anime, he comes across as more jaded, as it's just another day on the job for him, only really feeling something when he's fighting and eating. Dante is also implied to have a big heart, as he often gives many humans the benefit of the doubt and doesn't try to kill any humans on the job. There is also some mention of him showing emotion to certain demons in the show, but not to a complete extent where he shows them all mercy. One example of this is an episode where a demon with healing powers falls in love with a human girl. Other returning characters from the game include Trish and Lady. There isn't much to say about them. They mostly act the same as they were in the games, often very gruntled of Dante as he both owes him money. The show also introduces other characters to the franchise, such as Morris, his handler, who doesn't really do much except give Dante jobs so he can pay off his debts. Morris is often very annoyed of how Dante usually finishes his jobs because Dante either causes more damage or just doesn't get paid. There is also Patty Lowell. She is a little girl coming from a rich family. She is first introduced in the series as a girl who has a mission for Dante and eventually starts hanging around him for the rest of the series. And if Edge Runners is anything to go by, it's that you can't be a big anime without a little moe. Patty, in my opinion, is not that much of an interesting character. From what I read about when this series was new, Patty was pretty hated on, and personally though, I never found her too much of a bother and actually didn't mind her presence. I think she makes a great contrast to Dante because Patty often nags Dante, similar to the rest of the cast in the show, and cleans up after him a lot. Dante is the stoic, brooding, quiet guy with an edgy snark, and often very carefree, whereas Patty is upright and stern, which I think is a nice contrast. Dante also has a recurring adversary throughout the show, known as Sid. He is a lesser-known demon who actually has a huge plan in the works, and for what that plan is, I will not spoil. I thought he was pretty neat, all things considered, and to some first-time viewers, they might get the impression that he's just an evil comedic relief, but really, he's more of a sinister observer. He's not in every single episode, but he appears every now and then, building up to his grand plan. I do have a gripe for the show that I will segue into praise pretty soon. The fights in the show are not really something to write home about. And it is somewhat disappointing that for a series known for high-octane action, the fights in the show are not much to write home about. They're just fine, but not terrible. And before we segue into the praise that I'll give it soon, let me say that without wishing to spoil most of it, the final fight in the last episode is disappointing. It doesn't really last long, and the main big bad demon, who is not Sid by the way, disappears in a flash off screen. Man, I absolutely love it when things are off screen. Gosh, I love being told and not shown. Oh man, it's such a great story tactic. More people should do it. That's sarcasm for anyone who couldn't tell. And on another negative, Dante does not go devil trigger in the show. Maybe he does it off screen, but it's never shown in the show. Now let's segue into the praise. This anime is gorgeous. The art team did a phenomenal job capturing the gothic dark aesthetic of the series. Everything has a dark shading to it, and the scenes at dusk and night really stand out. You can pause this show nearly most of the time and it'll look like an art piece straight out of a graphic novel. I guess you can say it's pretty stylish. In fact, the more I think about it, the more I realize that if the fights were more flashy and moved around a lot, this would be absolute hell for the animators. And this may sound like a weird fact for a lot of people who only just started watching anime when COVID kicked in, but anime used to be known for very limited animation and is what made it stand out from Western animation. And yeah, I know whatever mainstream shonen of the week now has more frames than your average housing store, but something like Devil May Cry the Animation was pretty limited in terms of characters moving, so it does explain why the fights are not as flashy and fast as they are in the games. But some of the earlier fights in the show were neat, I'll give it that. So while the fights were lacking, the art direction is gorgeous. The rest of the animation too is also really neat, except for this one part where we have a bunch of background characters dancing. It just seemed really off, like they were using rigged animation or something, which is probably not something they used while animating this. But other than that, the animation is mostly nice. The soundtrack is worth noting as well. The soundtrack is absolutely perfect, as many of the hard rock sounding songs go well with the fights, and even kind of reminded me a bit of Devil May Cry 1's soundtrack. The whole soundtrack is not just complete hard rock that makes everything tense. There are a lot of motifs and genres that fit the mood of whatever scene is shown. One of my favorite songs, believe it or not, is a very chill acoustic rock song called Life Is On You by the artist Rangran. I cannot play it because this soundtrack was known to get copyright strikes. It's mostly played in a chilled out and slow segments of the show in the Devil May Cry building where Dante is chilling and getting griped at by Patty and Morrison. Another standout song is a piano piece called Pain, which plays during the sad parts of the show. That's really weird. I thought with a title called Pain, it played during all the funny, happy-go-lucky moments of the show. Man, I am a media literacy master! The opening is also really great as well, and it sets the tone of the show perfectly and fits well with the Devil May Cry franchise. Action-packed with a stylish look and some emotional moments. And speaking of emotional tone, I gotta shout out the credits/closing song. The credits and the song itself are kind of a tonal whiplash to the overall action-packed stylish motif of the show, but I think it's really nice as it shows another side of not just the Devil May Cry universe, but also Dante as well. I mentioned before that Dante is a lot more of a broody character in this show, and I think the credits song, I'll Be Your Home, kind of reflects Dante's state of mind. How, you may ask? To keep it brief, Dante is a really tragic character. He lost both his parents and has been dealing with demon attacks his whole life, so much that it affects his own personal life. He has lost a lot and has to deal with a lot, and he is constantly in debt as well. Having a somber and emotional closing is a really neat choice, honestly, as it shows that outside the demon hunting and pizza consuming, Dante has had a hard life, but despite this, he chooses to keep going. The lyrics are also really emotional. I can best summarize it as, despite everything that has happened, Dante is still here, in his home, his heart. Something Dante has that most demons lack is emotions. Dante is not just part demon, but he is also part human. Devils never cry in the Devil May Cry universe, but Dante was born from a devil who could show love and a mom who loved him very much. This isn't just portrayed in the credits, but also slightly in the opening with symbolism of Dante crying blood over a picture of his mother. And yeah, that's all I really gotta say about that. The soundtrack is great, and so are the openings and endings. In conclusion, while Madhouse's 2007 Devil May Cry series might be flawed, it is still an enjoyable series through and through. It was really nice to see Dante's day-to-day basis of what his work was like outside of the games. The show has nice art direction and neat characters. I don't know if I would recommend this to people who haven't played the games, because I feel like you would like this more if you played the games first, since you get a general concept of who not just Dante is, but also who Trish and Lady are as well. And I feel like some non-fans who watch this show may be a little lost when seeing certain characters or concepts, like Dante's backstory as Anthony Redgrave. And believe me, when I first watched this show, I was a little lost too. I think it's really cool how Morrison and Patty all carried over to being officially canon into the game's universe, so that's nice. And that is what Devil May Cry 2007 is. A nice tie-in series to the games. And they never ever made another adaptation afterwards. Never ever. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for watching this video to the end. If you enjoyed it, be sure to give it a thumbs up. Dislike it if you dislike it. Comment down below what you thought of this video, what you thought of the Devil May Cry 2007 anime, what you think of the Devil May Cry games, or just want to leave a stupid comment below. It really does help the algorithm when you comment my videos. Be sure to follow me on social media, more specifically Twitter/X, since that's kind of the only social media I even use for this channel. Also, I moved into a new place, so I don't know if the setup looks the same or it looks different. I mean, I know it just kind of prance around a green screen, but, you know, compared to the other stuff I do, it just, you know, things will definitely look different. Oh, and also subscribe to the channel. Please, definitely subscribe to the channel. I know my content is very consistent, but if you like inconsistent content, or just content made by me in general, it really, really does help know that people like seeing things made by me. And yeah, that's all I really got to say. So yeah, I'll see you in the next video. Jackpot!